Would I buy a home in this housing market? I'm often getting viewers reaching out to me saying, Jeb, would you actually put your money where your mouth is and actually buy a house in a market that's appreciated nearly 35 to 40% in the last 2 years? They say, Jeb, you've been talking about housing, buying a house. The market's about to crash. Would you be willing to buy a house right now? And the answer is yes. And I want to take some time in this video to tell you why my family and I are considering purchasing in a market where homes have appreciated. And also in a market where we're seeing more inventory, prices declining. Why wouldn't I wait for prices to bottom out? Why wouldn't I wait to try and time the market and get a house for 50 cents on the dollar? I want to walk you through what that conversation looks like between my wife and I. We'll talk a little bit about my family to get an idea of the position I'm in and why I think it's important to not worry so much about the market and worry more about whether or not it's the right time in your life to be a home buyer. So over the last 2 years, we've seen homes appreciate 35 to 40% in many markets out there. At the same time, we've seen interest rates go really low, and then we've seen them trend back upwards, where at the moment, house payments are nearly 80% more than they were just 3 years ago. So it's 80% more expensive to buy a house today than it was 3 years ago. So why would I, as a real estate agent that sells homes, helps buyers buy homes, understands the market, consider buying a house in this environment? Well, I want to take a minute here and talk about where I am in my life. So my wife and I currently own another property. As many of you guys know, we actually purchased that home in 2012. And at that time, we purchased the house because we had just gotten married. We were having our first child. In fact, we had just had our first child and we needed more space. We were renting an apartment at that time, and it just wasn't conducive to, the family orientation. It wasn't set up for having a kid run around. It was the second story of an apartment. There wasn't really a lot of common area downstairs to have the kid run around, play outside. So we thought it would be a good idea to purchase a home. And so at that time, this again was back in 2012. And we went out and looked at properties and we found one that worked, and we ended up making an offer and it got accepted, right? And fortunately for us, the market took off shortly after, right? So we didn't plan this. We just happened to buy a home because, again, it was the right time in our lives at that time. And shortly, a couple months later, the market started climbing. This was early 2013, and really prices haven't looked back since. So we got really fortunate when we purchased that property. It was never about timing. It was about the right time in our life. Well, now here we are 10 years later, almost 10 years later, and we have 3 kids. We have 3 boys. The ages range between 10 and 4 years old. So we have a 10, an 8, and a 4-year-old. And our property sits around 1,800 square feet. And for many families out there, 1,800 square feet is plenty of room for a family of 5. Well, my family and I, my wife and I, would like more space. Our kids love to play outside. They're going to grow. They're going to get bigger. They are boys, and they're sweaty and messy and everything that you would expect as a kid. And for my wife and I, we would like more space. We would like more family space so that, we can kind of be separated from them watching what they want to watch on TV, when they're playing iPads or playing video games. We'd like to not be necessarily in the same room as that. And so we need more space to do that. At the same time, our outdoor space isn't 100% what we're looking for. While we're on a nice cul-de-sac, the kids can run around and play outside, and we have great friends around us. Ideally, we'd like a yard, maybe a pool of our own, maybe space to add on, add additional, like an ADU or a workshop or whatever it is. So that's why we're actually considering buying a house. But many of you are looking at that saying, hey, Jeb, well, the market's up 35 to 40% in 2 years. It's going to crash. Why wouldn't you just wait for the crash? Well, for one, I don't believe a crash is coming. I think that's very hopeful thinking. But at the same time, I don't buy because of the price of the house. I buy because it's the right time in my life. And what I just tried to tell you by sharing that story is that buying a home isn't about buying it at the right price, picking the top or picking the bottom, unless you're an investor. If you're an investor, then obviously the price is a little bit more important because of cash flow and some other things that you're trying to do for the property. But if you're a homeowner looking to buy that property because it's a property that you're going to live in for the next 7-10 years, grow your family, or whatever the reasons are, then to me, it's less about the price and more about, is it the right property? Now, on top of that, you've got to make sure you have the money in the bank, that you have job security, that you're comfortable with the payment, right? It's not just about finding the right property. You have to be able to make those payments comfortably every month, right? You have to look at this market as one that you're willing to stay in for a 7 to 10 year period, because homes have appreciated so much, and there's a very good chance that we could see sideways movement in home prices for an extended period of time. You've got to be in a position that if home prices do pull back, that you're not underwater when it goes to sell that property, right? So if you're looking, for just a short time period, 2 to 3 years, now's probably not the best time to buy a property. As a real estate agent, I'll tell you, it's not always a great time to buy a home. And right now is one of those times when you have to be a little bit more cautious in the process because of how much homes have appreciated, right? I've said this several times in different videos. Because we've seen so much appreciation in such a short period of time, there's a really good chance that home prices could pull back or move flat for an extended period of time, because we need to get back to that trend of 4.5, 4.6% appreciation over the last 50 to 60 years, right? So when you've gone up that much in such a short period of time, it's normal for home prices to pull back a little bit. It's normal for home prices to move sideways, right? So that we can get back to that trend. And so if you're buying a home in this market, that's one thing you have to consider. And my wife and I, we're in a position where this would be the home that we would probably stay in for the next 10, 15 years. Because again, our youngest is 4 years old. He's got at least 14 more years before he's out of the home. And we also want to have a house that when the kids are in college or out of college, that they can actually come back to. There's a place for them to stay, bring their friends when they come home. We want to be the house where people come back to and visit. We want to be able to have friends from out of town. And at the moment, the house that we have doesn't really allow that. And by getting a new home, it allows us to do some of these other things that we want to do as a family. And so just like we did back in 2012, as I mentioned earlier, we're more looking at, is this the right house for us right now versus looking at the price of the house. We're more worried about finding the right property versus worrying about, is the property the perfect price to buy at this time? Now, I know many of you are watching this, you've made mistakes in the past, or you're worried about making, the wrong mistake when buying a property. You have fears of buying a property in a market like this. And those are reasonable things to have, right? In this market, it's a little crazy out there. And, with all the headlines, all the craziness, all the people on YouTube, and all your friends have opinions about what you should be doing, it's normal to have those fears. In fact, I'm a home buyer who's made mistakes in the past, right? I've bought properties at the top of the market. I've sold properties that I shouldn't have sold. And I'm actually going to talk about that more in the future, more about these mistakes that I've made so that they can help you and understand that these are normal. And I also have regrets about some of the properties that I purchased. And like I said, we will talk about that in future videos. But what I'm trying to stress in this video is buying a house isn't about timing the market. Buying a home is about the right time of your life for whatever reason. For me and my wife, it's about the growing family, the need for more space, for friends to come visit, just all of the things I mentioned in this video. Now, I know many of you are going to watch this wondering, should I buy now? Should I wait? Do me a favor, check out this video here. Until next time, have a great day. See you soon. Bye-bye.